No, that's great. Good.
So it is, we are recording now. I would just make note and then I'll make note as we start.
Okay, that's great. I think we could go ahead and start at this point.
So as we're going to go ahead and get started, I'll just make note for everybody that we are recording this. It will be available for the residents to be able to just listen to. In the future, we'll get that recording over to the HOA management company so that it's available for anybody who wishes to. But we want to make sure everybody understands that it's being recorded, and we're doing that. I will make note that the shared screen down below is if you ask any questions that we want to try to pull something up, and a couple of our answers, I'll pull up some maps so that everybody knows where we're talking about. That's the purpose of the shared screen. So Anita, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. So we're live now?
Yeah, we're live.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Anita Burke, president of the Liseter Community Association Board. Very glad to have everybody here with us this evening. I'm so pleased to have the township come back to speak to our residents again. And we have with us tonight Stephen Neese, who is the Newtown Township Manager. And we also have Leonard Altieri, a Township Supervisor. So I know you sent in questions, which they're going to address, but there'll be a chance for you to also ask some additional questions if you have them. So with that, Stephen and Leonard, I will turn it over to you.
All right. So the first question that we had submitted was a question regarding is the township contemplating creating a new trail through the woods adjacent to Rock Farm Road and Lewis Run Road? I believe Liseter, this was more of a comment. I believe Liseter Run residents who live on these roads would oppose this idea, as my neighbors and family do. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up our map that we have that's for our trails within the township, and then we can talk to what that map means. And just give me a moment. Whoops, let's go the other way. So in August of 2020, the board approved the plan, the master plan for the trails of Newtown Township. It was actually a trails and greenway study that was done. It actually started about a year and a half before that. And that was a committee that was made up of township residents. Probably about a third of the committee residents were on the Parks and Rec and different committees within the township already. But then there were people from the general public who were part of that committee. In addition, during that master plan process, there were several public meetings that were held that all the public had an opportunity to come in and weigh in on where we thought trails should be. And so that was the purpose. And so this master plan is developed. It doesn't mean that we're going to definitely put trails in those locations, but it means that these are places where we think would be a good place for a trail based on comments that the public made during that process. And so if you will, I'm going to go ahead and this map kind of shows all the different trails in the township, and they're all numbered. And if you go, this is on page 70 of the Township Greenways and Open Space Network Plan. It is on our website, and if you type in Greenways and Open Space Network Plan, it will take the website will in the search bar. The website will take you to this location where you can pull up the plan, and this is page 70 of that plan, and you can see the map. In addition, it gives you it gives you the whole process that we went through, all of the different things, if you read the whole plan all the way through. I believe the question that's being asked, however, is related to potentially trail number 13. And if we look there, you will see that there was some talk or was some interest from the public about connecting part of the Meadow Preserve Trail back down to the trail. Whoops. I apologize. My mouse went faster than mine. So it was connecting the Meadow Preserve Trail down to the Goshen Road Trail. And so again, this was a public process. This is where members of the public said, we think this is a good place for a trail. Understanding that would have to have an agreement with the HOA, with the Liseter HOA to put that trail in, no matter which way it was done. You'll see that one was a temp way that would actually be going out to Echo Valley Road and having the trail come up Echo Valley Road, which is the subdivision behind the HOA, or coming right down the property line of the backside of the open space, and then out to the Goshen Trail that way. So that the short answer is there's nothing set in stone. This is a plan. This is kind of like if we had our dream of everything that we could accomplish of all the trails in the town, this is all of them. And this is one that would be discussed and could be discussed by the Trails and Greenways Committee that the Board of Supervisors put into place. I believe it was in July of this year. Is that right, Leonard?
That's about right.
Yep. So I don't know if there's any more questions related to that one, or Leonard, if you wanted to add anything.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to add, so again, as Anita said, my name is Leonard Altieri. I'm one of the township supervisors here in Newtown Township. I appreciate the opportunity to be back to speak to the Liseter HOA. I know I was here a few months ago, so Anita, thank you again for hosting this forum for Stephen and I to have a conversation. Before I go any further and answer that, I do just want to say one of the big things that I have been working on in the last 2 years is open and direct lines of communication. For those of you who have social media, I want to let you know that I do have a supervisor Facebook page where I am constantly updating information with regards to the township. It is simply just Leonard Altieri - Newtown Township Supervisor. There's a lot of good things that's going on in the township, but I also use it as an avenue for you to communicate with me, to ask your questions. I also have a township email that is on the township website, and I will provide both of those in the comment section so the residents can see it. The only thing that I want to highlight, two things that Stephen said. Number one, this is a master plan. So all of the master plans that we have in the township is essentially, the way to look at it is a wish list. If we had unlimited funds and unlimited ability, what would this committee that was put together, what would it be that they would want? And so in every master plan that we have, and we'll get into some of the other ones with the questions that were submitted, it is essentially just that. It's a wish list. The township puts together these these committees to create these master plans to help guide the township. We incorporate a good amount of what's in the master plan, but we don't incorporate everything that's in the master plan because one of the biggest things that any municipality faces is funding challenges. And so, while we go out and get grants and private funding, that issue, in addition to a few others, is usually what drives the discussion on which parts of the different aspects of the master plan can be utilized. The second thing that I want to point out is for any of these trails or for any of these projects inside any of these master plans, there is a very lengthy public review process, if you will. So the Trails and Greenways Committee, as Stephen mentioned, was created by the Township Board of Supervisors in July. It's a committee made up of 9 individuals whose sole purpose is to implement aspects of this master plan, as well as to look at areas of open space that the township can acquire. One trail that we're processing through right now is what we call the Pico Right-of-Way, if you will. It runs from, Stephen, are you pulling it up for me? Right where the mouse is, trail number 16, it essentially is the old freight line that used to run through Newtown Township. It is essentially a Rails to Trails project. Pico has subsequently bought that easement. And so there is an easement that we have access to. But the process is the reason why I bring it up. The process is one that would be replicated probably for a lot of these other trails, where we do a feasibility study to see, is it even feasible for the township from a multitude of reasons? Number one being financially. The other one is there neighborhood buy-in? Do the residents want something like this? Not just those that are going to be affected, but is this something that the community wants or the community needs? This will be an open discussion. This will be an open process where residents here in Liseter can comment on their thoughts and their concerns. The Trails and Greenways Committee is a recommending body. There is no statutory authority that is granted to them. So they don't get to say, thank you for your comment, we're still doing it. The ultimate authority does rest with the Board of Supervisors. But the Trails and Greenways Committee will field most of the conversation, if you will. And then obviously the Board of Supervisors will also entertain any of that public comment. So it is an extremely open process. And the way that you can stay up to date on when these items are going to be on the agenda is you can go onto the township website and sign up for an email blast. Every time the township publishes an agenda, whether it's for the Board of Supervisors, for the Zoning Hearing Board, for the Planning Commission, for the Greenways and Trails, you can select to receive a text message and or email. The same is true with Public Works. If there is a road that needs to close, or if a storm comes in and a road is shut down because of tree debris, you can get all that, you can get those notifications. So I highly recommend the residents to sign up for that email blast so that they can stay on top of it.
So before we move on to the next question, was there any, this was really the only question about the trail piece. I hope everybody understands that the intent is for it to be a public process. Anybody that would have concerns would have an opportunity to share those concerns. Are there any other questions related to that? We would ask that you would, hopefully you know how to electronically raise your hand. There's a opportunity usually at the bottom of your screen for most folks, and it says raise hand. We would recognize you and do that. I don't see any hands raised, so we'll go on to the next question.
And we will also be taking questions at the end of this as well. So,
yes.
As the township manager, for those of you who are just joining, there is a hard stop at 7 o'clock because the township has a zoning hearing board meeting and they're using the same account. So if it looks like we're moving fast on this, that's the reason why.
So the next question says, I would like to submit 2 associated questions for the upcoming session as it relates to aspects of the master plan for the Meadow Preserve. What is the probability associated with each of the parking lot proposals in figures 3.2, 3.3, and 3.4 of the master plan chapter 3? And what will the process, what will be the process to make such a decision? And will the property owners have a chance to voice their opinion during the decision process? And then it goes on that I would like to provide the following feedback as it relates to my question. As a property owner on the Meadowview Farm Road, the proposed parking lot in figure 3.4 concept plan C would place the parking lot directly across from my home and that of my adjacent neighbors. That lot would literally be yards directly in front of my home. And in the existing brush, if the existing brush and large evergreens were removed to locate it there, my primary view would be a parking lot. And then it goes on to talk about that when they purchased, one of the reasons they purchased in that location is what they saw. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up those plans. So this is concept plan C. And if you can see this spot right here where my mouse is the area that I believe is in question related to parking. What I would say is two things. One is the township has explored that as a possible parking place. Right now, that is not on the table as an option. And if we did look at parking along there, I believe the intent would actually be further back, more towards this area back here, because we believe two things. One is it's actually a flatter area, and it's also would be less impact on any residents at Liseter if we were to do it along the road going in. I believe right now the latest thought, and it's not finalized by the board, but one of the conversations that the Trails and Greenways Committee members have had would be to potentially put the parking more along this area here, right along the edge. We probably wouldn't have quite as many spaces, but there is an opportunity to put the parking down a little bit closer to the park and to figure out how to get the entrance at that location. So to answer what the probability is, I think it's pretty low for it to be in that one particular spot. I can't say that it wouldn't be along the road, but that's not our prime location for picking where it would be, is having really gotten out and evaluated where that is. But that's not saying there wouldn't be parking back in that area closer to the preserve itself.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of that, I have to be honest with you, Steve. I love that you're here because you're really doing more of the technical questions. Last time I was here, I was doing it all. So I like that I can just piggyback off onto to what you're saying. The one thing to I guess prepare yourself for or acknowledge is that parking will eventually be somewhere on that area. Where will it be is completely up in the air. Again, going back to what I said earlier, this is a master plan. So the master plan calls for a litany of things that the township will either move forward with or we won't move forward with. Parking will occur. Where is that going to happen? Is anyone's guess right now. But the important thing to remember is that the process because I think it's the second part of the individual's question, the process that would undertake is, again, a full public presentation, full public process where individuals will have the right to come before the Board of Supervisors and or the Greenways and Trails Committee and voice their concerns before any decision is made. I can tell you that this board, as it currently stands, is not interested in having lights shining into the residents of Liseter's homes. So we are going to be cognizant of the fact that wherever parking is, we want to ensure that it's not directly across or extremely close to the existing homes. And the other thing too is, again, with this master plan, I've heard from a lot of residents with concerns related to the proposed restrooms that are shown in this master plan. Again, it goes back to this being a wish list. Me personally, sitting here as just one of 5 supervisors, I can tell you that I am not in favor of having a restroom down there, not for the reasons that people tend to think of or try to use. I will be honest in what I think is a scare tactic of saying that inappropriate things are going to happen and it's going to be a health and safety issue. I just don't think that there's a need for a restroom down there. I don't think that our public works team that is stressed enough already needs to get into the business of cleaning multiple restrooms. But more importantly, this preserve is going to be designed, as it always has been thought of, as a passive recreation. So this is not going to be the nice and easy, let's take a stroll. This is going to be purposely designed to remain hilly. It is going to purposely be designed to remain as natural and resistive, if you will, in terms of a workout that the natural contours of the land provide. Now, there will be an easier access when time comes, ideally with a switchback to get down there to make it ADA accessible, but it will be a passive recreational area. So again, the long and short of it is parking will eventually come. There's no plan or concrete conversations that have been occurring right now outside of just a few discussions, I guess, with the Trails and Greenways Committee. But again, when that starts to gather steam, it will be agenda items on the Trails and Greenways Committee. It'll also be an agenda item for the Board of Supervisors. And you have a tremendous leader in Anita Bork. She is someone who is tied in with the township, especially as it relates to the Planning Commission. She has made it very well clear. She has represented the interests of this community very well of this concern. And so it is something that is that we're cognizant of and something that we will continue to move forward.
I just to make note, I think somebody put on a note that the meeting started at 6:30. I think there was some confusion when the invite was sent out. It was set at 6 and at 6:30, I believe. The meeting did start at 6. We are recording the meeting so that anybody who's missed any part of the discussion can go back and listen to any or all of it again. We will be getting that to the HOA and to the management company, but we will have that available to you. I would make note that the second question that was asked, I believe, was related to, it says, my concern is about adding another major entrance to a proposed trail access parking lot so close to the north entrance into Liseter. I believe we're talking about this entrance that's right here that comes down. The entrance actually exists today. The only possible add, if the parking lot was to be put here, and that's not definite at this point. Like I said, we're looking at several options. There might be an exit coming out further down. I do believe the entrance is down here to the Liseter HOA. And so what I would say is, again, none of that has been formalized. As Leonard said, it will be a part of the public process. We do have access to that road. Some people have said, well, it's marked as do not trespass. The road itself is on Episcopal property, but there is an easement that the township holds to have access to the 50 acres, and it is a public access easement so that people can go back there and access the 50 acres. I would make note, as just from a standpoint, that this project, there was a public process through determining this master plan, just like the Trails master plan that we talked about earlier, and related to the fact that there are 3 different plans that you see in here. This is plan or concept plan A. This is the 50 acres that the township owns and it will be managing. It is our intent right now that that would be what we're going to manage and develop. There had been some talk during that public process with people who were living in the Liseter at the time. They either Plan B, and I'll show you C in just a moment. And the difference with Plan B was this area back here. Well, my mouse is going a little bit wider than what I wanted to, but right, this area back here, that's actually Liseter HOA property. And there was some concern. I believe right now the trail in some points goes across that. People have been using that for years. And there was some concern from folks on the Liseter HOA, was there a liability? And so there was some talk about would the township potentially take that and take on that liability. And so we're not talking about that tonight. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying when you look at the plan and somebody says it looks different, that's why it was put there. If that was a talk that the HOA was interested in having with the township, we would have that talk, and that's what the plan potentially could look like if it came to that in the future. C was actually going down just a little bit further. There was some concerns about maintaining the waterway from some folks on the HOA, and we said we could do that and look at that as a possibility. I don't know the board would be interested in that, but that's the real differences between the three plans that you see in the master plan study. And this is in chapter 3. And again, you can find that on the township website. So I just wanted to make note of that because people may be confused. The first plan is what the township is acting on at this point, because we've had no further conversations with the HOA if they're interested in doing anything. So we're not assuming that's going to be the case. It was just brought up and we were asked to add that in as a possibility if the HOA was interested. And so that was what we did. So that's not the township making any assumption. It was just, we used the public process and we did that based on that possibility. So are there any questions about that? I will say I saw a hand raised or a comment about us recapping. If we have time at the end, I'd be more than happy to go back and recap kind of what we started with in the beginning. Leonard made note that we do have a 7 o'clock hard stop for the township because we'll be using this same account to do the zoning hearing board meeting that's tonight at 7. So I do see that we have 2 hands. We'll go ahead and take those questions. I believe it's Amy.
Amy, you're muted.
There we
There we
go.
go.
I people the impression that
Amy, you're breaking up.
6:30. Can you just explain exactly where that area is in relation to the?
Amy, I think you're breaking up. Leonard, did you hear the question?
I did not.
Okay. Can you state it again, please? Amy?
I said that I came on at 6:30 because I was told that that's the time they're starting.
Yeah, there was some.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I was one of the people that came on at 6:30 and I wanted to know where exactly are the streets like Liseter Road and Cottage Lane? They're not on this map. Can you tell us where these back up to in the development?
So let me expand it. Let me go back if I can.
Steve, while you're pulling that up, Anita, do you want to address the 6:30 start versus the 6 o'clock?
Yes, I'm sorry, there was, when the most recent reminder was put out, it accidentally was put out saying it was 6:30 at the top of the announcement. Further down, it did say 6 o'clock. So we regret the confusion on this. This is being recorded. So anyone who was not here for the earlier part will be able to hear the entire thing. And I'll just make a comment about the discussion or the comments about a Liseter board and question about taking over some part. That is not the current board. This was the board that was before while Toll was still in control. So that's not your current board that's been in place since September 2019.
Thank you for clarifying that, Anita.
Sure.
I meant to say that when I said that it was very early on. It was back, like I said, this plan was adopted in 2018, so it was even before that. So you asked about Cottage Lane. I think hopefully you can see that. What's down here at the bottom? If that helps. As for where Liseter Road is, I believe that's this road coming along here.
Yes. Yes, that would be Listener Road.
And then this is Meadow View that we mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Where is that?
I'm sorry.
I can't see where you're pointing.
Can you see my mouse?
Okay, so that's Meadowview Farm Road?
Yes.
Okay,
And then Cottage is down here, Cottage Lane. Where my
Okay.
mouse is now.
got you.
And then Liseter Road is out here.
Okay. Okay,
Okay.
that makes them clearer. Thank you.
All
Can you
right.
just review very, very quickly what you talked about between 6 and 6:30 for everybody that got on late?
Yeah, I said I would do that as we were finishing up, but I'll real quick. The first question was related to a potential trail going through the backside. I would call it the backside of the property closest to Echo Valley. And we talked about real quickly that, you know, that was part of a master plan, but that doesn't mean it's going to be done. And there would be a public process, a feasibility study done before that was ever built. And it would be another chance for the public to weigh in on the process. All right, I'm going to go to Teresa. Teresa, you're muted. Teresa Hoffman.
Maybe we should move to the next one.
I'll go to the next one. I want to, Linda. Linda Levitt. You're also muted.
At the bottom of your screen, you should see a microphone. You just need to click that on. There you go.
I'm wondering, is the township responsible for the safety of the streets? Specifically, there is a severe drop off into the pond at a very sharp curve on Lewis Run Road, which is very, very dangerous. They need to have a guardrail there because in the wintertime, it's very slippery. And if somebody slips into that pond, it's going to be very uncomfortable for the township and the homeowners association. Someone needs to come out and look at that. So
the township does not own the roads. These are private roads in Liseter. That's the way that the plan was put together. We are having conversations with Toll about some further work around that pond. So just so you know that there is discussion about that, we're very aware of the concerns that people have, and Toll is working with us to try to find a solution. That area is so narrow to put a guardrail there. Toll does not believe that that is a very feasible thing to do because of how narrow it is. However, we are looking at solutions that will help protect that area.
Or they could put large boulders there like they have in the rest of the areas.
We're talking to Toll about different solutions. Yes, you're right. We're looking at different solutions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm not sure this is in order, but the next person I have is Andrew Neary.
Yes, Steph, and I apologize if I missed it. I put a note into chat. Just, I know a couple years ago when there was a township meeting, Episcopal specifically, when this plan was proposed, was indicating that they were against the plan because the public access was too close to their to Episcopal Academy, and that they might object or even fight the plan. Has Episcopal agreed to the plan? Has this been presented to Episcopal, or are they in agreement?
Well, let me just say that the township owns the 50 acres. It is public property. It was part of the plan for the Liseter subdivision that the township would be given some open space through the process, which has happened. The thing that Liseter came back and questioned, I believe that people, at least the part that I think people related to, was the road coming in. We have resolved that with Episcopal, that road does have public access, and that it's not just for township employees to come down, but people from the public can use that road to access the park. So is Liseter is Episcopal Academy necessarily happy with the entire plan? I wouldn't say yes, but just like pretty much, I think Leonard would tell you, almost anything that we do in the township, there's a percentage of people that probably don't agree with what we do, and there's a percentage of people wish we would take it further. And so we try to move and take action on what we think is best for the entire public. And that's what we try to do the basis. And that's why this was a public process to start. They had a lot of concerns, and we've taken those concerns into account. If you've been on the 50 acres, you'll notice that we put up some fence pieces throughout the 50 acres along the edge, particularly along Episcopal's Academy side. And part of that was at their request to make sure that people understood when they were coming onto township property and leaving township property. And so we did that as kind of a marker so that people would kind of understand that. And we are looking potentially at doing something similar on the HOA side in a few places. A lot of what's on the HOA side is kind of stopped by natural barriers doing, so there's not quite as much of a need to do that. I will say the house that's right on the corner, if you can see where my mouse is right here, we have talked, and I'm sorry, I forget the name of the property owner there. We did talk with her, and she has asked that there not be a fence right up next to there, and so we won't do that. We've said we would look for another alternative to help make sure that her area is protected, and that if there's a question, we want people to understand where the line is. But we're trying to work with that and make it seem like it would work well.
Great, thank you. Just two follow-up questions. So no particular order. So I apologize if you stated it, but this is just the plan. What you're reviewing tonight, this evening, is around the reserve or the preserve. This isn't contemplating any other walking paths, again, that I believe are part of the greater plans that would go up Rockwood Farm Road or behind Rockwood Farm Road. They would go behind other residents' homes on the Liseter HOA property, the common area. That's question one. And then the second one would be, in terms of the plan, are we moving forward and you're just sort of updating us, or are there decisions, or what are next in order to implement the preserve?
Yeah, so
let me jump in here. So for those of you who just joined, my name is Leonard Altieri. I'm one of the township supervisors here in the township. In the chat forum, you will see that I provided my township email address, as well as for those of you on social media, a Facebook page where I update the township on news and information that's happening across the township or impacting the township. I also use it as a forum to engage with residents, so please take the opportunity to do so. The answer to your question, Mr. Neary, is that this plan that we have before us right now is a master plan. Same thing with our trails and greenways plan. It is just a master plan. Another way to put it, to look at it, is it's a Christmas list. It's if the township had unlimited funds and resources, this is everything that we would want to have the Cadillac plan. When the township puts together these master plans, we implement some aspects of it. We implement, and then there's other aspects of it that we don't implement. So where we are right now with all of this is to think of it as just that. It's a wish list. We are in the process of having conversations of where's parking going to be. But you know, this meeting was called, I guess, in conjunction of talking about the Meadow Preserve, also to just address other issues or concerns that the Liseter residents have. So to answer the question, there are 3 variations of this master plan. Nothing is set in stone whatsoever. Any process or any movement that we take on any of these master plans will be a full public process. It'll start in either the Greenways plan, either the Greenways and Trails Committee, or with whatever other body within the township would have jurisdiction over it. The residents of Liseter, as well as the general public, will have the opportunity to provide their comment and their input. And then the Board of Supervisors, you would also have another opportunity to provide public comment before the Board of Supervisors before we make any decision. So this is far from anything concrete. It is essentially just the wish list, if you will, of the individuals who are on the committee. And then Stephen, if you want to answer the question with regards to the trail.
Yeah. Again, you know, I think Leonard just mentioned that it was part of a master plan. I can pull it real quick back up. Whoops. I hope you can see that. The spotted question, I think, was number 13, particularly the one that's labeled ULT, which is where I think that the public ultimately would hope that that would go. It would be back up against the edge of the property owners who are in Echo Valley, as well as potentially along the side there of open space in of the Liseter HOA. Again, this was the wish list. This was where people said, if we could have trails in the township, where would we like them? We, as Leonard mentioned earlier, and I'm a little hesitant let me just say this real quick. We have a hard stop at 7 o'clock, and I apologize for the confusion of whether we were starting at 6:30 or 6 o'clock. But we do have a hard stop at 7 o'clock because the Zoom account that we're using tonight is also being used for the zoning hearing board. So if people come on, they'll be coming into the Zoom meeting, and we've got the zoning hearing board going on tonight. So if we stop kind of abruptly, please understand it has nothing to do with us not wanting to answer your questions. I would be glad to reschedule if we need to at some point to answer further questions. But I did want to state that, again, this is a dream list. We do have, to go forward, we would do feasibility studies, and the public would have a chance to weigh in again.
All right, thank you both. I appreciate that.
I'm not 100% sure if this is the right order. It's just the ones that are coming up in that order. Mr. Leach?
Yes, are you able to hear me? I think I unmuted.
We can hear you.
Oh, good. Okay. I have 2 questions, and they relate to Cottage Lane. I see on the map, and I thought this started at 6:30, so I'm in a little late. Maybe you covered this earlier, but I see that there is something, there's sort of pink dotted lines down near the bottom of Cottage Lane, and that the legend says that's Liseter access private something that's cut off. So this looks like it's a private path for Liseter residents. So is that the case? And if that's the case, is there going to be signage that directs other non-Liseter folks not to use the path?
So and I think the idea was, and again, this was prior to the current HOA board. And at that time, some of the comments that were made, Toll, I believe, was still responsible for the HOA board. And so questions were asked, could we have access to the 50 acres another way and not have to go all the way up to the Meadow Farm entrance?
Okay, second question. I don't see it on the map. I had heard some discussion about a potential parking area near the bottom of Cottage Lane. And that is, at the bottom of Cottage Lane, the HOA property ends and the township property begins, right at the bottom of that cul-de-sac. I had heard that there was a consideration of putting in a handicapped parking lot in that area. Is that still under consideration?
If I understand where Cottage Lane is, I don't believe that was ever a consideration. The only place where there was ever a consideration of putting in handicap parking would be up in this area where my mouse is right now.
Okay, and just to help you a little bit, if you look at the legend, right above the legend, if you go up just a bit, you can see the annotation of Cottage Lane.
Yes.
And then if you go to the left, as you see the houses there, you can see, you approach Lewis Run. So
Yeah.
it sounds like that in that area, which is right along Lewis Run, which would be the border of the township property and the HOA, there are no plans to put a parking lot in there.
I don't even know how we would get cars down there, to be honest with you. It's a pretty steep slope going in at the area that we have access. I mean, we are going to try to put in a switchback to allow ADA accessibility, and we will have to have it so that the township public works team can get down there to maintain the park. But you know, we do not see cars driving deep into the 50 acres. We see them maybe parking, like I said, at the up at the top hill there where I pointed out that is, there's never been any talk that I know of to have parking anyplace else.
Okay, thank you.
I believe Joan and Charlie are next.
Yes, our question is basically, you brought up an issue that really wasn't the question initially. You had mentioned we live right there in Meadowview Farm Road.
Yes.
Right, almost where you'd put the handicap at the trailhead to the preserve.
How close will it be?
How much will that impact all these houses along Meadowview, that road? Also, if it's down that far, that means will you have to widen the road, the right of way along Episcopal in order to make that the handicap? Because how would cars pass one another if you're all the way down there?
Yeah, like I said, and as Leonard has said, this is in the very preliminary stages. There's a lot of discussion that has to be figured out to take this any further. I would make note, I think there was some question on Plan C about having parking here, and we addressed the fact that I don't see that happening either. It would be further down the road if it was towards 252. Again, we're still pretty preliminary. We have to figure all of that out, how we would handle cars coming in and out. I know cars do it today, but if we actually put parking there, we would have to look at what we were going to do.
Yeah, because I know the cars that do park, they'll park on Meadowview Farm Road and in front of all our houses and block our driveways. And also they'll park in the breaks. And I think there's 2 or 3 breaks along that road that they'll pull their cars into. Also, they park along the road at the end of the ball fields as well. So I guess there are things that you got to kind of work on. But
Yeah.
My initial reason for my question was, why is there no entrance down by Echo Valley Road? Why is basically, and now I noticed you have something here on, is it the water lane?
Yes.
Is that trail in there?
It's not there today, as far as I know. If it is, people have put it in on their own.
Yeah, because if you walk the preserve and you go down to that southwestern portion of it, there's people walk through, or it looks like there's a trail, but there's also sounds saying this is private property, do not enter. So I'm wondering what is potentially going to happen there? Are there going to be entrances from down there? Because that to me, now this is purely selfish, that to me seems like a better handicap entrance, because the steep grade up here at the trailhead, as opposed to what the topo is down at the other end, seems to be a better solution. But again, I'm looking at it from someone who lives on Meadowview Farm Road.
Yes, and I appreciate that. We have looked at, when we did the master plan several years ago, all of this was looked at, and I can tell you it was all a challenge. And the access that we know we have is the access we talked about tonight.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess I one other quick, I guess the request is if we could maybe, since we got on at 6:30 as well as most people got on it, I assume, that we could maybe schedule another meeting. Now we kind of know what the thought process is that you have with your A, B, and C, so that maybe people can, and the Liseter part can maybe get together and figure out our questions as a group, as opposed to kind of scatter shooting now. I mean, this is the same, almost like the same kind of conversation with the red, white, and blue route when they put them in as well. So,
okay. So as we've mentioned several times through the process, we did record, so you can go back and we'll share the recording. I also think we've shared several times that at 7 o'clock I needed to have a hard stop because of the zoning hearing board meeting. I can only tell you, I cannot speak for Leonard, but I can speak for myself. I'm more than happy to meet again since there was confusion. I'd be more than happy to meet if there wasn't. And so be glad to come back and talk with you at your request. We can do that. I will say that I'm looking at the time. I believe it's about 4 till 7,
yes,
according to my clock. And we do need to bring an end to this meeting so that they can start the zoning hearing board meeting.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I have absolutely no problem with that, Stephen, and I appreciate Charlie saying that, because I know it's going to be something I was going to recommend to Anita because of that time mix up. So I have no problem. I think it's probably in our benefit to do it because there are a lot of questions out there.
Yes, absolutely. We'll be glad to facilitate that.
Thank you very much.
I want to thank both of you. I know you need to go on to another meeting, and thank you very much for coming. We always enjoy having you, and I know people appreciate the information, and we will schedule another session when we can get our schedules together. So thank you, everybody, for joining tonight, and we'll see you at another time. Thank you very much. Good
Sorry
night.
that we have to go.